Welcome to a Sunny Side Up Life podcast, a show for the woman who is ready to live an abundant life full of freedom and positivity. I'm your host, Sami Womack, a nationally recognized money expert, budgeting coach, and your very own hype squad. I'm on a mission to help you break free from survival mode, gain financial freedom, stay motivated, and focus on what matters most. Join the movement and let's start living on the brighter side of life together. Just a reminder that everything discussed in today's episode will be linked in the show notes. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads at A Sunny Side Up Life. If you're ready to take control of your money and need guided instructions, check out my free budgeting challenge by going to asunnysideuplife.com. Now, let's get into the episode. I am so excited to welcome this week's guest. Renee is a self-proclaimed shopaholic turned minimalist who started documenting her journey on her blog, The Fun Size Life, back in 2017. Since taking her message to social media, she has been able to spread her message of slow, minimalist living globally with news outlets like Parents, Marie Claire, and Newsweek. As a natural oversharer, Renee started her podcast Unstuffed in 2022 as a way to connect more with her audience and encourage them to choose life over stuff. Renee is one of my favorite people to follow on Instagram, and I am so excited for you guys to get to know her better. So let's welcome her to the podcast. All right, welcome. I am so excited to finally be talking to you.
I'm pumped to be here.
Yeah. We've been talking about this for a while. You've been on my guest list for a while, so I'm just very excited. So let's just jump right into tell us a little bit more about yourself and we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, I am Renee. That's so cheesy. I started my blog in 2017. It's called The Fun Sized Life. And I started it after our family went through this process of downsizing our house by 2,000 finished square feet. And we did that just in the hopes of kind of having a reset on life all around, because we were managing so much stuff. We were paying for so much space and just really realized that that was not how we wanted to be living anymore. So I created a blog. My hope was to generate money from it. And I was able to. So I'm in the span of just 3 years, I completely transformed how I had been living my life, how I had been spending money, and even like completely shifted my ideals of what success was and who I wanted to be. So from there, I've just taken it to social media and grown it into podcasts and, 500,000 social media people. And it's been amazing.
Yeah. Your reels get some very impressive amount of views. I'm just like, it's great. They're amazing. And anyone listening who is familiar with my story, this is really why I wanted to talk to you, because our stories are very similar. You kind of just went more of the minimalism route. I kind of went more of the money route, but we both intertwine them a lot. And our stories are very similar in the sense of it was 2017 when we downsized our house from 3,200 square feet to 600 square feet. And in the name of what are we doing with our lives? Like money, time, energy, just all the things. And we're like, hard stop. We're resetting everything. And it was the best decision that we could have ever possibly made. And here we are. So this is why I really want to talk to you, because I'm like, our stories are just so similar. I'm like, did we like copy each other's notes? Like what happened here?
Isn't that bizarre? I didn't realize that's what we downsized 2016, but like still like right. That's really crazy. Like, yeah. I wonder if there was just like something in the air, No.
I mean, it was like right after like Marie Kondo and like everybody was kind of getting swept up with the minimalism, kind of thing. But I don't know. I did read Marie Kondo. I mean, yeah, I read it, but it wasn't like super relatable to me. I don't have time to like roll my socks a certain way.
Same. I started the book because people were talking about it. Yeah. And I remember like taking it into the bath, like just sounds maybe like TMI, but I was like, I think I maybe like got through like a chapter and I was like, no,
it's okay.
When her series came on, I watched, that was cool, but
yeah.
Mommy.
I was like, it was okay. And then like the minimalists, the two guys, and I was like, it's okay. And everybody was like, oh, you must be like so upset. And I'm like, I mean, they're not moms.
Right.
So, kind of, but I'm like, I'm in the camp, instead of like folding your socks a certain way, I'm like, owning less socks is easier.
Right.
And I'm in the camp of like, I don't fold them at all. They just have their own individual box and I just stuff them in there and go about my life. So,
Right. That's I don't want to spend more time managing my stuff.
Yeah. It's
like I don't want to care about it more.
Right. Exactly. So I recently did an episode. I'm not sure how many episodes apart these are going to be, but kind of talking about like how minimalism and money kind of go together. And so I'm hoping that we can kind of dive into it like a little bit more and share your experience as well. But I think something that is super relatable in definitely how they tie together is the shopping addiction. Stuff. My stuff makes me happy. Going to Target and mindlessly shopping makes me happy. That kind of mindset. I want to hear your thoughts on that, and we'll dig into it a little bit more.
Yeah, you're so right. And that was a big part of the minimalism for me. Because like you said, the minimalists, like I do like the minimalist story in the sense, I can't remember what their names are, which sounds terrible. But I love when people are like, I didn't like my 6-figure job, so I cleared, realizing that your life is out of alignment. I think that message is so powerful. But what I didn't share is that was kind of largely part of it for me. Was I realized that I was relying so heavily on stuff, my shopping addiction. It was like whenever I was having a bad day, and it's taken me years to understand what it was that led me to buy stuff, because so many of us have, especially if you're a woman, you think of like maybe the times you spent with your grandma or the times you spent with your mom. What did you do? We went shopping. That was shopping. So we learned like connection and love with, the people that we care about in our lives. But also like we get this happy fix from it. And it just was, I was getting so tired of the cycle of realizing that I would buy this thing and I was so happy when I got it. And like the happiness was gone. Yeah. I realized like I'm always needing another thing. So minimalism for me was like, okay, I need to just stop. This isn't working. This isn't making me happy. It's causing me to go like be broke. Like we were struggling financially because, and my husband and I both struggled in different ways with just like impulsive spending. And it wasn't getting us anywhere that was good, Yeah.
And it's interesting, even the time. I think a lot of it is the time too that kind of gets discredited. Is we were kind of like in this trap of, in our free time, what do you want to do? Let's go shopping and let's go out to eat. And we're just like walking the mall, buying things because we don't have anything else to do on a Saturday, when actually we're just avoiding our chores at home because our house is like overstuffed, going out to eat because we're just kind of too overwhelmed to even cook. And I don't know what else do you do? And it's just like everything we did was spending an excess of money, was bringing more clutter into the house. And it was almost like we didn't even know how to have fun outside of shopping and going out to eat, which is kind of disconnected, right? You're like, where's nature? Where's rest? Where's, reading books, doing art, whatever. Where's all of that? It's not in there. It's just like a huge disconnect.
Oh, for sure. And that's when you're saying that, I'm like, I totally relate, because we were the same way. And like when you said like we didn't have anything to do on a Saturday, and I'm like, doesn't that sound amazing? Right. You didn't have anything to do on a Saturday. Why didn't you just do nothing? Yeah. I'm such a fan of the do nothing.
Yes. Like, why didn't you like take the kids for a walk or to the park or go to the lake or I don't know, take a nap? Why did you feel the need? But it's just like kind of tying it back in is like talking about filling a void, an emotional void, a void in yourself of like, I can't sit still with myself for that long.
Oh, like, right. That's totally it.
The root of it. That's the root of it. That's where it's like, all right, maybe there is a little bit of therapy that needs to happen instead of that, retail therapy. That's not real therapy.
No. And that's what, creating the space, minimizing our home. I always say like, by getting rid of my stuff, I always try to emphasize this because it wasn't about organization. It wasn't about, it was sort of about making my home easier to manage because I didn't want to spend as much time managing my stuff. But for me, it was like, I just need to create this space to figure out who I am, but also to be able to learn new things. Like I didn't know anything about money. I didn't know how to manage money. But downsizing, simplifying my life, gave me the space to not only like learn my triggers, help me understand myself better, but to start understanding money better, because I didn't know what I didn't know about money, obviously, or I would have been doing better at it at this point.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us are so busy just filling our time however we can that we don't give ourselves the space to, really do some growth as a human being in whatever way that looks like for us.
Yeah, that's huge. That's really huge. And I love that. I've seen this reel trending around. I'm not sure if you posted it or I don't know where I've seen it, but people like scanning over piles and piles of stuff and then being like, yeah, this is clutter. 1, this used to be money. 2, but this used to be time. All this stuff used to be time. It was like the hours of our lives that we traded to make the money to buy the stuff, and then all the hours that it takes to maintain and clean and pick up and organize, and then eventually go through the whole process of decluttering the stuff. That's a lot of time.
Right.
I think that was one of the huge things for me was when I finally like decluttered my house and kind of decluttered my schedule. I sat there and I was like, oh God, I am alone with my thoughts. I have nothing to busy myself and my brain. And I was like, kind of actually started to kind of like an identity crisis a little bit of like, I don't know who I am without this clutter, which eventually is like in that free time. That's kind of where I started my business. Cause I was like, okay, now I'm really bored because I'm not just mindlessly cleaning and moving clutter from this place to that place. And I was like, oh, I have all this time. I can start a business. But it's crazy to me.
Oh, but I absolutely love that because you've done so much with it. And I think that's kind of part of what a lot of us are missing. And I know it sounds so hokey and not everybody wants to hear it. And sometimes it's maybe just deciding like, okay, I'm ready to have some more fun in my life now. I don't think it has to be this. For me, it was a big like mission of purpose where I just felt like there was more I was supposed to be doing. But now that I've same thing, started a business and started kind of using my voice, which was really difficult for me. That was not something I was accustomed to doing. And I hear compliments from like my mom. My mom's like, who are you? I didn't know you were this person. It's like, that's because I was too afraid to be this person for so long.
Yeah.
So I started reading more books. I started finding the confidence to share my voice in just the smallest little ways. And so I feel like I've done so much soul expansion. And now that I've kind of reached that, I'm like, now maybe it's just about kind of getting back to having real fun. Like you said, like you'd go out to eat or you'd go shopping, but that wasn't like really fun. I don't know. Right. Like there's just such a difference.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, sometimes I could see maybe, I have had some really good date nights with my husband where I come back and I'm like, oh, like we really reconnected. We had a lot of fun. Like, oh, those margaritas were delicious and we laughed a lot and it was great. But I think it's all like kind of, it's the purposeful. Like now when we go out to eat, it's purposeful. It's more of like, we don't just go just because we were just too lazy to go grocery shopping and it's just easier and whatever, now we're like, okay, now we have a purpose, like to bond, to, have a break from the kids. And same thing with shopping. Like, I don't just go, I do go like thrift shopping and garage sales are like where it's at for me. But for me, that's not even really mindless. That's my alone time. That's my me time. And it's not even really about like bringing in the stuff. It's just, I just like kind of wandering around and like looking at people's treasures and, kind of like that. And I maybe spend like $10 or $20. Like it's not really like about that, but it's not just like roaming. I don't know. I just remember like walking up and down the mall feeling like you had to leave with something. You had to leave with like $100 worth of stuff, or walking around Target because you're bored. That doesn't feel right.
No, been there, done that. And I love that. And you're so right. Like I love a good meal. So I shouldn't ever say that that's not fun. You're right. One of my favorite things that we've been able to do since paying off debt and being more intentional with our money actually is like, I love being the person that's like, I'm not obviously not this fancy. I just like to overemphasize and pretend, but I'm like, oh, let's just go to dinner. Don't worry. It's on us, darling. Like it just feels so good. Like to take like our moms out. There was a day where our kids had a thing at their school that they were doing. So my mom was in town. My husband's mom was in town. And we're like, oh, we'll take you to this really nice place. You know, our moms are like, my mom lives in a very small town. So she gets, you know, small town restaurants. Yeah. His mom, you know, has a husband who's like, what buffet should we go to this weekend? You know, so to go to like this little wine bar and to have some kind of fancy food and be able to treat them. That felt so good. And yeah, it's like a memory, obviously, that stands out to me. This meal that I remember, not because it was just like we're too lazy to eat, which we have those days too. Yeah, you're so right. It's just all about the
intentionality
behind it.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So we know that minimalism has kind of changed your life philosophy. I want to get into a little bit more of the specifics with the money, if you don't mind, like how much debt you paid off, how long it took. Tell us a little bit more about the specifics of the money.
And I'm not great with specifics, but I will try. I can always remember because I did a blog post on this. It's so funny. This is such a small little tidbit that I'm going to throw in. I really wanted to make money with a blog. And so I had that idea, like I have to do it this way. This is how I have to do it. And it wasn't working. It was it was like healthy eating fitness. Because I was also interested in that, but I was like, screw it. Nobody's reading. I'm just going to write about what I know and what I'm doing in my life. And took off, made money like almost instantly. It's just crazy when we follow that. Fun, you know, kind of follow what feels fun. But I wrote a blog post called How We Paid Off $6,000 in 6 months. So I do know we did that. And I want to say it was a total of like $12,000 when we first downsized. And it took us. And I think we paused here and there because we went really intense with it for a second. And then the thing that happens is like, I remember like we paid off debt and I did like this big Instagram post and I was so excited. And we headed off on a trip out to California because my husband's family lives out there. And our car broke down. And we had to rent a minivan to continue with the trip. We're like, okay, we had to, you know, and it was just like, no, you know. Right. So then there was a quick little bit of digging out. And there have been times over the last few years, you know, if I'm being honest, where the credit card has gotten used again and it's gotten a little bit too high. It's just a matter of going, I don't want debt to be my normal. You know, debt was just my normal before. So now whenever we have those times, because life is hard right now, and I'm hearing it from so many people and I feel it and I want people to know that I feel it. Part of me is like, I don't want to speak it into existence because if I talk about it, then it becomes real. But the other part of me is like, let's all be real. It sucks right now. And there are times like the savings account gets low and the credit card gets swiped. And it's just a matter of going, okay, now we need to come back from this, you know? So it never got back to what it was. After that first 12,000 of intentionally paying off debt, you know, we had those little times where it was like quick catch up here and there. But I also think that's part of the journey. And I think that's something that people need to know, especially if you're like a recovering shopaholic. Like that was my addiction. That was my struggle. So I think it's a natural part of the healing process of unlearning who you used to be, is knowing that sometimes you're going to make the shopping mistakes. Sometimes you're going to overspend in the bank account and then be screwed when it comes to having to buy groceries or something. And that's not something I talk very much about. So here it is.
Yeah. It's reality. And I do, you know, the same thing is now the past 2 years, we started dipping our toe into like travel hacking. And it's a little scary because I consider myself like, we very much abused our credit cards. We very much used them with no real intention of paying them off. I don't know who we thought was going to pay them off. We didn't even really discuss it. There was no plan. There was no nothing. And once we kind of like broke that, I was like, no credit card, debit cards only, and very adamant about it. And then was kind of like, well, I feel like it's been a lot of years. Maybe we could kind of dip our toe into travel hacking. And travel hacking has went really well. And we have gotten multiple thousands worth of free stuff at this point. And of course, I keep a very detailed spreadsheet and I'm like, make sure that it really is free. But there are some times where like we intentionally do our spending on a credit card now, pay it off every 2 weeks. And there are times where it gets slightly high and I'm like, oh, I'm scared. I'm like, or our savings account gets a little too low. And I'm like, okay, that's really scary, but that's reality. But it's also like when that does happen, kind of going back to that old feeling of like, handle it. Don't repeat the past. To clean it up. And we'll also, we have these seasons where we're much bigger spenders. Last summer, I feel like all we did was spend money. And we kind of came together and we were like, all right, time to like reel it in a little bit. We just had a rough summer and we did a lot of emotional spending. We did a lot of eating out and we were both like, okay, that was a season. This is, remember, we're not going back. So we kind of like reeled it back in and we're like, all right, tighten it up a little bit. But that's reality. And that's like saying that you're never going to kind of fall off is just not realistic. We're human.
Right. And I think so many times we hear, even like, I know how I share my story. It sounds like, oh, she was just successful instantly and it was amazing, And so I'm like, how do I find a way? But I'm so afraid of like, when you have like an online presence, it's like, I don't need people to dump on. I'm like, just trying to be human here. But
right.
I love what you said, like about trusting yourself with credit cards again. This was something I was speaking on recently because it takes a matter of trust of like, okay, I'm not going to be that person again. Oh, we slipped up a little bit. Let's get back to, who we're going to be. It can be so scary to retrust yourself with money when you've been bad at money. It's such a tough thing. And I think right now, and this is how we're feeling, it kind of sounds like what you said after last summer for yourself. And I think other people might be feeling this way too, is that we kind of got into a happy medium with our spending, with our money, where things were going smooth. And now, if economy wise, everything wise, it's just like, I have to try again. Like, come on, I found my happy medium. And it just feels like now we're having to like I wasn't really looking at our grocery budget. We were kind of at a place where like, I knew what we were spending. We were spending it fine. Everything worked. I didn't really have to hover over the budget as much as I used to. And now I'm kind of looking at it more again. Yeah. And there's a part of me that wants to whine and kick and be like, I don't want to do this again. Yeah. But it's where we're at. So
our income didn't go up at the same rate that groceries have gone up. Right. So we had to kind of adjust. And now I'm like back to, we were doing very much the same thing. We went so hardcore with our debt for several years and our kids were really little. So it was, I feel like, kind of easier. They didn't really have an opinion on what they got on the grocery order back then.
Such a good point. Yeah.
So we were kind of like, okay, like a couple, like sometimes like basically no snacks because we're really tightening the budget. And then we got to a point where they're getting older. I'm going to let them each pick their own bag of chips, each pick, and like a dessert for the week. And that's fine. And it lasts them a week, whatever. And so they'll each kind of get like a couple. And at first it was like, you can have one extra thing and it's going to last you the week. And then it slowly turned into 2. And then it slowly turned into 3. And then the other day I'm going through the grocery pickup order before I finalized it. And I'm like, who put all this on? Who? Thank you. I'm like kind of feeling that pinch again. And I'm like, okay, delete. But also, groceries have went up. And also my kids are bigger. I have a teenager now and she eats probably more than I do. Like she's just growing like crazy. So we're feeding 3 adults now, basically. And so it's like, all right, readjust. But I think that's the biggest thing too, is what I try to teach my clients is you're not always going to just stay in the same season. Life is going to keep changing and moving, and your kids are going to get older, and your income's going to change, and inflation is going to change, and your mental health is going to change, whatever. And you have to pause, readjust, reprioritize instead of just, I think, unintentionally barreling through life. Like, let's pause, let's readjust, and kind of go back into it all.
Oh, you're so right. I like that you said unintentionally, because that's what, we've done so much work. So I think my husband's really quick to be like, oh, those people are making big mistakes with their money or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, we were those people. So don't be so judgy. Like,
right.
Or if we wouldn't have figured it out, that would have been us. So like, but unintentional, we would have been unintentional and just kind of going through. And I like that you said, you're right. Like, as the kids get older, it's not as easy to maybe even pay off debt for people who are trying to pay off debt or who are trying to keep up. If it's their first time going, it so matters what stage of life you're in on top of that.
Yeah.
That's what, when my kids were little, they were such healthy eaters. I could buy like a bag of baby carrots at Costco, like giant baby, and that was their snack, and they ate it and they were happy. And now they're like, I want Takis, and they have opinions, and like, they want the different things. And like, what stinks is my daughter wants to eat healthy. So she's like, can I get a stuffed salad? And inside I'm like, no, because I already have a budget down. And I want to stick to it. But like, I'm going to say, no, you're not going to get stuffed salads.
Right.
Yes, fine. Let's figure this out. It's so difficult once you start having them be older and they have their opinions and they are eating more.
Yeah. You can't get away with like the knockoff brands of things. Like, my kids are older now, and there was a long time where they all wore like fake Converse.
We just had this conversation last night. That's
I finally got caught. And my teenager, she was like, Mama, these are dupes. I want the ones with the real star. And I was like, gosh, she finally found me out. I'm gonna have to buy the real Converse now.
Can you just like buy the iron-on patches on Amazon or something? And be like,
I got away with like the Target brand of Crocs for a really long time. And then she was like, no, these are not the real Crocs. I need the real Crocs so I can put charms in them like everyone else is doing. I'm like,
Oh man, I know, it's so tough. And especially me, like as someone who like went through recovering shopping addiction and applied minimalism to my life, I struggle to like I tell my teenage daughter like to quit rolling her eyes at me, but oh man, do I have a hard time not rolling my eyes at her sometimes. It's so difficult. And she's like, I want to go to Sephora, and I can't even name drop because I don't know the names because I don't care.
I don't either.
Where she's like, this moisturizer and this lip stuff, and I'm like, okay. But I try to nicely walk her through it with as much patience as I can, because I don't want either one of my kids to fall down the path I did. But I also am a big believer in saying like, that stuff's stupid. You don't need that. Like if you were to say to your kids, like, you don't need Crocs, you can have the knockoff Crocs. You can have, I think that can like send people, which like if you physically can't afford it, obviously everybody's budget's different.
Right.
And that's what I bought my daughter Converse 2 weeks ago, maybe. Yeah. And she was like, oh, I really want both colors. And I said, I'm not doing both colors. So if that's something you want, you can work to save your money and get, we definitely have to set boundaries in those things. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And like, she knew her clothing budget. She wanted Converse was important enough for her to fit into that budget, so it was like less, she got no pairs of pants, but because she's got her leggings, she's covered with her leggings, so it's making those decisions.
Right. Get the shoes. Yeah.
Right. She's wanted them for a while. So
but it's like that. It's that compromise. And I think it's also teaching them. I don't want to teach my kids like a scarcity mindset.
Right.
That's something I'm really big on. And I don't want them to, I don't know the right way to say it, but I grew up poor. Literally, not just me throwing a fit thinking that we were. No, we really were. And like new Walmart clothes, new Target clothes were peak. It happened maybe for back to school, maybe a handful of items. Other than that, it was garage sales and it was Goodwill out of necessity. And so I went through this phase of like when my husband got the same job that he has now, my senior year of high school, because he's a little bit older than me. And then like I graduated, I moved in with him, all these things. And we had all this money. We both grew up so poor and we were like buying all the things, like doing all the things. We finally have money and we kind of went overboard. So we're like, okay, that's not healthy either. So where is this middle ground? And so we're very big on like, we don't say, well, we're too broke for that, or we can't afford that, or we're poor, or we're whatever. But we also don't go the other way of like, we don't just like brag about how much money we have. And I don't know, it's a weird, like first generation wealth building. I'm trying to figure this out as I go and trying to teach them the value of money. And so like the Converse, for example, my solution for it was, let's see if we can thrift some. And I was like, okay, I mean, they're all at the ages they're growing like crazy. They're not going to wear these shoes very long. They're not going to wear them out. And so I found a pair of real Converse with the star that she wanted on Mercari, and all was right with the world. And she was perfectly fine. And I was like, all right, I'm happy. They were, budget friendly and it was thrifted, and which makes my, conscience feel better about it. And she's happy because they have the freaking star on them.
Right. That's genius. I'm like, dang, my daughter still wants she wanted a white and black pair. I was like, that's such a smart idea, because I think so many people I probably have very gently used shoes that they're selling anyway, because so many people are still in the habit of, buying all the shoes. You wear them twice and then you're done.
Yep. Oh. They're like, you're over them, you're bored. And I've been trying to like thrift my shoe, except for like, I don't know, my sandals, I kind of wear them out, but like my boots, some of my tennis shoes, except for like my running shoes, I'm going to wear those out. But shoes that I'm just going to wear a couple of times to like run errands. I'm just, I'm trying to get a little more thoughtful of that. And my kids are so, I don't know, this new generation of kids, they're something else. But my kids are so like, oh, you like this? Yeah, my mom thrifted it for me. And it's like a flex for them. And I remember lying to kids and being like, I don't know, my mom bought it when I was at school, because God forbid I told them I got it at Goodwill.
Yeah, that's what our neighbor girl a few years ago, when she just turned 16, which is crazy to me. Everybody grows up so quick. Yeah. But I think when she was 13 or 14, like, so still like teen years, all she wanted was to go thrifting for her birthday. And I remember, and it's like, what? Yeah. That's what you want? That's so cool, though. That's so amazing. That I hope that shift stays.
I hope so.
That secondhand is cool and sustainable and practical. That's thrilling. I absolutely love that.
My 10-year-old,
I would have been the same way.
No, my 10-year-old threw a fit the other day. She's like, I just want to go to the thrift store. I'm like, who raised these kids?
Gosh, and don't you like, it's funny that you say like, coming from your upbringing where that was something that you hated or, were embarrassed or uncomfortable about. And then you said first generation wealth building. It's like, as you were saying that, I had this thought, I'm like, it feels like you're writing the playbook and then you have to like go back and erase stuff. Cause it's like, and then write it again. And you're like, no, that's still wrong. Yeah. Because how do you do this when you don't know, Yeah.
I don't know. And then I'm afraid, like, I'm brave enough to admit that, I don't know, like people ask me all the time, how do you teach your kids about money? What are you teaching them about minimalism and intentionality? And I'm like, I'm just trying my best from day to day. I don't know.
Yeah. This is what I'm trying and I'm hoping it works. I'll get back to you in 20 years. You know?
Give me 10 or 15 years and I'll let you know. Cause I don't know. Every once in a while, like my 13-year-old, I get little glimpses where she'll do things like flex on people because it's a thrifted dress or whatever. And I'll just like those little glimmers of like, maybe I'm doing something right. Maybe I'm doing something right. And I'm like, I'm just going on that hope. I don't know. I'll get back to you in 10 or 20 years and let you know how they turned out.
That's all we can hang on to. And that's what I'll say for bringing my daughter to the store and her she'll out loud talk through the process of not overspending her money, or she's like, I really want this, but this one's actually more affordable and I'm not going to get through it that fast. So like, I think I'll do this one. Or, I'm like, oh God, maybe you are listening. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so glad. And I think that that's the best thing we can do for our kids, is just wanting better for them and trying to find the words to make it happen.
And I think also not being afraid to admit to them if like we need to switch it up a little bit, and kind of, I don't know, for me, I am very out loud with my kids. I'm very, which is part, we homeschool, we're very like unschooling type of family. And so pretty much, 70% of what they learn is from me out loud living in front of them, exemplifying how to do things. And so there's a lot of times where I'm like, my oldest, I'm trying to teach her a little bit more about investing in the stock market. And she was like asking me about it. And I'm like trying to explain it. I'm like, does that make sense? And she's like, not really. And I'm like, okay, well, I've never explained the stock market to a teenager before. Let me try again. And just kind of telling her, I'm new to this too. This is my first time living as well. So
right. And I'm trying to make your life better than mine. Like, or, trying to give you that leg up that I didn't have.
For the past 4 years, I've worked with over 100 clients one-on-one, real women who took action on making big changes to their finances. My coaching sessions are designed to give you completely personalized budgeting support. Together, we'll organize your bills, build better spending habits, pay down your debt, build your savings, and invest for the future. I'll help you get a system in place that will set you up for success for years to come. I'll answer all of your questions along the way, talk you through all of your mindset blocks, and most of all, I'll be there to hold you accountable. So this time will be the time that you'll finally stick to your budget and make those dreams a reality. Visit asunnysideuplife.com/coaching to apply today to see if one-on-one budget coaching is right for you.
I was so proud. My daughter was featured in the Wall Street Journal.
yes, I saw that.
Yeah, both my kids were, but my daughter was like, I'll be interviewed. She was brave enough to be interviewed, push past her anxiety. So proud of her for that, because like to even like speak to someone else and answer these questions.
Right. It was huge.
Yeah. But it's still funny. I'm like, it does feel like that weird, because I'm like, oh my gosh, who am I to be the mom who's got the kids that are doing this? For me, it's been like, I was just going through my books today, and I've got my few investing books, and it's like, well, I've already done like a lot of set it and forget it with the investing, but there's still that part of me that's like, no, this is like my investing Bible. I will not get rid of this, because I still don't fully understand it.
Yeah.
I know I have it set up and I'm reaping the benefits, but I think that's something that anybody out there who is afraid of investing should really be aware of, is that like, I'm not just a numbers person. I've barely made it through algebra. I think they might have actually kicked me out of algebra. I think my brain blocked the memory. I don't know, but I was not welcome back to algebra 2. That's for sure. And, I think if you can like go through the process, I do this with my face because it hurt my brain so much.
Yeah.
To try to understand investing, but to get through it enough where I'm like, okay, I put it into place. Now it's working. Oh my God. You can take a breather,
Yeah.
It's so hard learning the stuff that we don't know.
It is.
But
yeah.
It's so great to reap the benefits of it.
I know. And that's how, about basically everything that I do now. At some point, I didn't know how to do any of this. At some point, I was brand new to minimalism. I was brand new to budgeting. I was brand new to parenting. I was brand new to all of it. And it's like reading books, listening to podcasts, asking questions, making mistakes, and then being bold enough to change your path, not just being like, this isn't working, let me keep doing it anyway. All of that is just growing, evolving, becoming a better version of yourself than you were yesterday. And that's, at the end of it, that's all you can really do.
That's the hope, and I'm never trying to like dump on older generations, because I admire so much of what they've done. But I think in a lot of ways, generations that came before us, like, maybe Gen X was the first opportunity people kind of got to like actually pause and start learning. I think people were just in go mode. It was just like, that was life. You just show up and you work. And we started to get this opportunity with the growth of technology and like self-help book things, or, I mean, I know like books have been around as far as like teaching money and things like that, but not really. It wasn't a very common thing until the last few decades where we're given this opportunity and like being able to tune into a podcast.
Yeah.
And social media in a lot of ways, finding people who've done it or can help you and can teach you. You know, like I think of my mom and she's like, she hates when I share about my financial journey and because I think she hates that she didn't give me better tools. And it was like, I don't hold any grudge. I don't blame you. You know, she did her best with what she had, but I also don't think she ever got the time to pause and reevaluate. Mm-hmm. And there was no words for limiting beliefs or scarcity mindset. Those weren't things that she even was aware of, you know, that they didn't have the chance to do. So we're so lucky, I think, to be able to change our lives more so than maybe the previous generations. But it's also really freaking hard to do too.
I mean, for me, like talking about being first generational wealth and all of that things, you know, I was also first generation college graduate. I was also the first one to go to therapy. I was also, you know, all these other things. My mom is gone now. My mom is doing better with her money now. She's doing better with like her clutter and intentional type, you know, hobbies. And, you know, she's trying. But I went first. And that's what's really hard is like, I feel like a lot of us are kind of setting an example for the generation before us and the generation after us. And millennials, like we get a bad rap, but we're changing a lot of things. And some people argue for the worst, but I argue for the better.
I see a lot for the better, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially clutter. Let's start just clutter wise. I go to a lot of estate sales and, you know, we don't have to have like 5 sets of fancy dishes. We don't have to have like, you know, all these dust collector. I don't even know. Like there's so many things. I like to go on the second day of estate sales when everything's like half off. And it's like, they have a couple hours left and there's still tons of stuff. And there's stuff that it's always the same stuff. They have too many dishes. They have too many linens. They have too many books, even though I love books, and you're just like, where is all that going to go?
Oh my gosh, you should do have you done a podcast episode on that or something? That's so interesting. I've done ones I did my grandparents' estate sale. So I've talked about that a lot and what I came through. But that's so interesting that you've kind of had the opportunity to observe the things that are still left over.
It's always the same things.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, it sucks, but it's really cool.
Right. It's interesting. It's fascinating. I mean, and what I used to do before I started doing all this money stuff was my family is in the auction business and my mom and my grandpa are still in it. And so we did a lot of estate auctions. Like I firsthand did estate auctions. And just the clutter and that alone is enough to do behind the scenes of an estate sale or estate auction. And it will make you a minimalist. Because for one, siblings would literally quit speaking to each other, get restraining orders over mama's quilt. What? Are you kidding me? Like literally. Oh, well, he snuck in after mom died and he took that cookie jar. That cookie jar is from the 40s. And now you're not speaking to him over. I mean, just some ridiculous, like literally people with restraining orders against their siblings over stuff.
That's and then, so heartbreaking.
Yeah. And then you're just like, there were so many. I mean, I remember us literally giving boxes of books away, just books and books and books and books. And like, we couldn't even get like $1 for a whole box of books and all these like trinkets and just knickknacks. And I don't know. It was a lot.
That's so interesting. Like, I'm like, write me a blog post or let's talk about this more because just because I've talked on the minimalism aspect of things for so long and the decluttering side of things, to kind of giving people that awareness, like your books will be worthless at the end of your days. Your dishes will be close to worthless. Like, and that's what I try to say to people when they, which I don't blame people when they struggle with throwing things away, because throwing things away feels so gross. It feels so wasteful when it comes to like, and it is. And it is
Right.
wasteful, but I say like the consumption is what's wasteful. It's
Right.
not the
When you
getting rid
bought
of.
it, that was when you created the waste.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I say like end of days, play it out for if your kids pick up your stuff and then maybe some grandkids hang on to stuff after them, your stuff's all going in a landfill anyway. Like there's a really good chance everything in my home, it makes me want to cry because gross.
I know.
Everything in my home today in 100 years, give or take, is just going to be garbage anyway.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. And it's like, so what you were saying about your books, you keep the ones that mean something to you, that you're actually going to refer back to, or they bring you joy. And, you know, keep the dishes that are actually useful, or they do bring you joy. I have a couple of like antique type things that I just look at. I have a yellow cookie jar that I keep all my utensils and my spatulas and stuff like that. I don't know why. I just like it. It's yellow and it's old and I like it.
Yeah. But that's what, it's so great.
That, yeah.
I just came across like a TikTok that I had saved a while back. And it was a woman saying that she wanted to declutter her house, but then she came across all the cool stuff she had. And it's kind of funny, you know, she's like dancing with all like this like costume stuff she's got on or whatever. And I get it, but it's like, but you had so much, you forgot about the cool stuff. So then the cool stuff gets hidden and it doesn't get the appreciation, you know?
Yep.
Cause you're right. Like I have my grandma's cookie jar. No one fought me for it. I just got it, but I love it. My home is actually filled with a lot of sentimental items. And it's funny that we're talking about books because I literally just bought some bookshelves off of Facebook Marketplace today.
Yeah.
Have to find a truck to pick them up because I don't have that. But because my husband and I love reading so much, and there are some that I either don't want to get rid of, or I personally love the idea of having a bookshelf so that when people come over, they can be like, oh, and look through my books. And I can be like, take it. Like, that's kind of my hope is like, I want to build a bookshelf where I can happily give books away to people who happen to like see them or come upon them, or I can recommend a book. I don't care if they don't read it. It'll make me feel good about myself. Just, I don't know, connect or share that way specifically through books. So yeah.
But they're bringing you joy now.
Oh,
and
100%.
Also, you're not really there. I think this, like kind of the baby boomer generation, they have this, and I noticed this a lot in doing estate auctions and stuff, was they think that there's monetary value in all this stuff, and there's really not. And I've been handed down dishes, for example, from both sides of the family, mine and my husband's, and been told how much they're worth. And then looked them up on eBay. I'm like, no, they're not. Yeah. Also, I've seen these same dishes at garage sales for like $2. They're not. It's not an investment to buy dishes. It's not an investment to buy precious moments, like little trinkets and stuff. They're not an investment.
I know. And that's, I think so many of us, probably millennial Gen X generation.
Yeah.
No, like, don't take the tag off your Beanie Babies. That will be worth something someday. Who told this lie? Like, where did it start?
We would have been much better off if our parents would have. I mean, yeah, sure, a few Beanie Babies, because I liked Beanie Babies just as much as any other 90s kid. But, you know, if instead of our parents spending like $30 or $20 on a Beanie Baby, what if they would have invested that in a college fund for us?
Yeah. Well, even put it in a savings account, I would have more money, right? You know, like,
right. But you're like, maybe the student loan crisis wouldn't be so bad if we would have had more in college funds and less in Beanie Baby.
Right. You know, that's such a good, like, more college fund, less Beanie Baby.
Right.
Like,
and my daughter now actually, because, you know, they're trendy again, because all the Y2K stuff is trendy again. So my daughter,
I didn't know Beanie Babies were back. My
daughter is collecting Beanie Babies now. Which just makes my heart nostalgia. It's great. And she has bought a few brand new with her allowance, with her spending money, or when she does tag along to thrift stores and garage sales with me, and she'll get them for like $1 or $2. And also she was like, we were at this one garage sale in this huge box and they were $1 a piece. And she's digging through them and I'm like, get whatever you want, baby. I mean, they're $1 a piece. I'm like, she's not going to get that many. And she didn't want them all. Even though she's collecting them, there's still a limit to her collection. And I'm like, she's got something there. You're not just like consume every single Beanie Baby. She's like, no, I'm going to be intentional with this Beanie Baby collection. I was like, low key, very proud.
But I mean, you've probably demonstrated that,
Right.
throughout how you've chosen to live. And that's what's something I've heard. And that's another thing, like you said, with the scarcity mindset. For me, I was like spoiled by my grandma every other weekend, my dad's mom. And my mom, when she was like in a really good like state of mind, like a really good mental health space, she would like spoil me, buy me lots of things. But then it was like, oh my gosh, we have nothing. It was like a roller coaster.
Yep.
And something I've heard and feel in my life is that when you have that, like, go ahead and get them however many you want. Like when you're given permission and it's there and it's comfortable and you don't have to stress, you're all of a sudden a little bit more intentional.
Yeah.
Like as soon as I gave myself fun spending money, which I never had done before, I just like whenever I wanted to buy something, I just bought it. As soon as I was like, I'm going to give myself $100 a month. This was in the middle of dead payoff.
Yeah.
I put it on a little Cash App card as my way of doing it. And it was like, no, that's not gonna. I wanted a Bluetooth speaker is what I wanted. And I was like, not the $70. No, I can handle this $30 one. This is just small. It meets my needs. It's as soon as you give yourself that permission and that little bit of breathing room, the desire to overconsume kind of goes away. It's really weird.
You're not like rebelling. It is almost like a rebellion, and it is almost like a revenge kind of. I think of it a lot. I equate it a lot to my clients with spending is a lot like our relationship with food and the diet culture. And when you tell yourself you can't have it, as soon as no one's looking, you're just going to go and eat like 20 cookies.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy. So it's the same thing with money. It's like, as soon as no one's looking, you're just going to go and buy a whole bunch of stuff that you really don't need. So if you were to practice like, okay, you can have like 2 cookies every day and it's okay. And you don't have to feel guilt about it. And then you're like, oh, actually, I'm kind of not in the mood for cookies today. And then you just kind of, it's the same thing with spending. And it's like starving yourself is not healthy. Over consuming is not healthy. The same thing with money. And it's like, let's practice balance.
Yeah. And it's kind of tough. Like you're saying with cookies, like, so I've kind of gone through this just trying to be more in tune with my intuition.
Yeah.
But like, do I even want a cookie right now? Like maybe I say like, I can have 2 cookies after dinner. And then you're like, oh, good. I get 2 cookies after dinner. But I think we can fall into that. Like I'm having 2 cookies. And then one night you're like, to ask yourself, like, I don't actually want these. I struggle with that.
Yeah.
Or I just fall into like a habit. And I did the same thing with my nails. I started getting my nails done again recently, but I paused for a while because I started to realize like it wasn't enjoyable anymore. It started with like something I'm going to treat myself with. This feels good. I love it. And slowly it was like draining and it didn't feel good. And acknowledging and recognizing, and just being in tune with that for everything. I think is so key to helping us just live a life that feels good for us rather than
on
falling into
autopilot.
Obligations.
Yeah.
Right.
Just barreling through life, not asking any questions.
Yeah. Been there, done that.
Yep. Yeah. I love it. And I love everything that you talk about. And that's why I was just really excited to talk to you. And yeah, for anybody who doesn't follow you, definitely go and follow you because I just love all your content. But to kind of wrap up, I love to ask my guests, I ask all of my guests to kind of encourage people to break free of a hustle culture, which I know this is what you're all about as well. So I ask every guest to share something that you love to do that doesn't bring you profit, that you do just for it bringing you joy.
Oh my gosh, I totally know immediately.
Yes.
I feel like maybe you do too. I overshare. I love singing so much. Singing is my therapy. My mom bought me, our family. She bought our family a karaoke machine for Christmas. And like, I can't tell you how much that elevates me when I'm already up and brings me up when I'm down. It's just everyone.
I think somebody else said that in an interview somebody who's like really listened to every episode of the podcast can probably find it for me. But somebody else said that in an interview like a year or two ago. And I was like, that's a really fun answer. That's not one you hear a lot. Most people are like, I like going for a walk or reading a book or
top of my lungs singing all day long. My daughter hates it. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's great. I love to like sing to my kids, like belt out. Like I was belting out like Celine Dion to them the other day and they were like, just mama, please stop.
I know, just stop.
Just stop. And I'm like, but it makes me so happy. I love it.
It does.
It's great. It's great. Yeah. So tell us where everyone can find you if they don't already follow you. Tell us a little bit about the resources that you offer, all that.
So as far as resources, I'm kind of in transition mode, but you can find me on Instagram, TikTok at Renee.Benes. And my podcast is Unstuffed Podcast.
I love it. Yeah. Great podcast. So many great topics. Highly, highly recommend. Yes.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything that you shared. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for hanging out for another episode of a Sunny Side Up Life podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend and leave a review. 5-star reviews are what help the podcast grow. Don't forget to check out the episode show notes for links to everything that we talked about in today's episode. And if you want to access all of my free resources or you want to learn how to work with me one-on-one, head over to sunnysideuplife.com to get started. And if you want to keep up with me in the day-to-day, don't forget to follow me on social media at A Sunny Side Up Life. Well, that's all for me this week. Bye, guys.